Why does she chase the one who doesn't chase her back? Why is the man who says less remembered more? Why does detachment, not devotion, ignite desire? Over 2,000 years ago, the philosopher Plato uncovered a truth hidden in plain sight. The more you need, the less you are desired. The less you need, the more they long for you. This isn't a modern dating tactic. It's a timeless principle of human nature, one that Plato explored through the lens of love, beauty, and the soul. The detached man becomes more than a person. He becomes an ideal, a symbol of stillness in a world of chaos. He holds no urgency, no hunger for validation, and that absence creates a powerful pull. In this video, we step into the mind of Plato to understand why the emotionally distant are not only noticed, they are pursued. Not for who they are, but for what they seem to embody: balance, calm, and something eternal. Stay with me as we uncover Plato's timeless truth and reveal why the soul is drawn not to noise, but to stillness, not to possession, but to what it cannot easily hold. Plato taught that love is not merely an emotion. It is a philosophical hunger, a longing for something we do not yet possess. In the Symposium, this concept is beautifully illustrated through the voice of Diotima, a wise woman who instructs Socrates on the nature of love. She reveals that love is neither fully mortal nor divine, but something in between, a daemon, born of poverty and resource. Why does this matter? Because it tells us that love is born in lack. We do not desire what we already have. We desire what completes us, what seems to possess the very thing we feel is missing. Now, let us apply this to the detached individual. When a man displays no urgency to pursue, no desperation to possess, and no anxiety to please, he radiates something rare: self-sufficiency. He is not trying to get something from the world. He appears to have something the world cannot touch. And, because he does not chase, he is chaste. To the observing soul, especially one used to being desired, validated, or pursued, this calm detachment appears mysterious. It interrupts the usual pattern. The one who should react does not. The one who should seek simply observes, and suddenly that quiet absence becomes the loudest presence in the room. But this chase is not truly about him. It's about what he represents. He becomes, in the Platonic sense, a reflection of an ideal form, something permanent, whole, and unchanging. The soul, according to Plato, is drawn to these forms: justice, beauty, wisdom, courage, and above all, truth. The detached individual unknowingly mirrors these ideals. Because he does not crave attention, he appears to have mastery over his impulses. Because he is not moved by temporary pleasures, he seems aligned with something eternal. Because he is still, composed, and unaffected, he becomes the canvas on which others project their own longing for order, strength, and certainty. Now imagine a woman encountering this kind of man, not emotionally reactive, not seduced by praise, not scrambling for validation. Her instincts are disrupted. Her usual tools, flirtation, approval, withdrawal, fail to move him. And that failure produces friction. That friction turns into fascination. Suddenly, she is no longer in control of the dynamic. She is caught in it. But Plato would say, this is not love for the man. This is the love of completion, a soul in tension seeking relief. She is pulled not by the man's actions, but by the form he reflects. What she perceives is not just a person, it is a path to something higher. And so, we return to the core truth. We desire most what we do not yet contain. The detached individual, by being whole within himself, awakens in others the ache of their own fragmentation. This is why she chases the detached. Not because he plays a game, not because he manipulates, but because, consciously or not, he holds the thing she is missing. And in Plato's world, desire always moves in the direction of what is absent, never what is already owned. Thus, love is not possession. It is pursuit, not of the person, but of the essence that person awakens in us. In the quiet presence of detachment, a timeless truth stirs. The soul desires not what flatters it, but what it cannot quite grasp. And that is where the chase begins. In Plato's philosophy, there are two worlds. One is the world of the senses, the world of change, desire, appearances. It is the world we see with our eyes and touch with our hands. Plato calls this the world of becoming. Everything here is temporary. Beauty fades. Pleasure passes. Emotions rise and fall like waves. It is the world of flux, and in it, nothing holds still long enough to give us peace. But Plato also speaks of another world, the world of being. This is the world of unchanging truths. It is not seen with the eyes but grasped with the soul. In this higher realm live the forms, perfect, eternal ideas that never decay. The form of beauty, the form of justice, the form of wisdom, and even the form of love. Every beautiful thing in our world is merely a shadow, a reflection, of this greater and permanent reality. Now, why does this matter when we speak of detachment and desire? Because when someone, especially a man, exhibits detachment, calmness, and inner stillness, he ceases to resemble the chaotic world of becoming. He begins, even unknowingly, to resemble the world of being. He becomes something more than a man in the eyes of others, especially in the eyes of a woman trained by experience to expect restlessness, emotional need, or eagerness to please. He becomes a mirror of the form, a glimpse into something unchanging, eternal, and pure. Plato would say that the soul instinctively recognizes the higher reality, even if the mind cannot explain it. So, when she encounters someone who does not react, who does not rush, who does not beg to be seen, something deep in her soul stirs. She sees in him a hint of what her soul longs for most: peace, truth, and stillness. Not external stillness, but inner order, the harmony of a soul that governs itself. And in a world that often celebrates noise, validation, and visibility, such detachment becomes rare and radiant. The detached man is not untouched by emotion, but he is not governed by it. He is not indifferent, but he is deliberate. He does not surrender his center to outer chaos. In this way, he resembles the philosopher, king of Plato's Republic, the one whose soul has glimpsed the light of truth and now lives in accordance with it. To a woman who moves in the world of appearances, who is often surrounded by men who seek to impress, entertain, or win her over, the detached man becomes a break in the pattern. His energy does not pull or push. It simply is. He stands still while others chase, and in that stillness, he becomes the one who is chased. But what draws her is not just the absence of need. It is the presence of something higher. She may not have the words for it, but what she sees in him is a reflection of the eternal. The more he refuses to bend to impulse, the more he appears whole. The less he conforms to emotional games, the more he resembles the timeless form of love, not desire but clarity, not craving but calm. And here lies the paradox that Plato so often explored. The highest things are not loud. They do not beg, they do not chase, they simply are. And in their being, they attract those who seek something real. Thus, the detached man does not seduce through words or gestures. He seduces through essence, through alignment with a higher order, through the stillness of a soul not in search of validation, but in harmony with itself. And in that stillness, he mirrors what Plato called the good, the final form, the sun beyond the cave, the source of all light. He becomes not a man to possess, but a mystery to understand. Not a heart to conquer, but a presence to approach with awe. And that is why she chases him, to understand why emotional detachment ignites a deeper form of desire, one that transcends lust and moves into the realm of ideal love. We must revisit one of Plato's most poetic and profound ideas, love as a ladder of ascent. In Phaedrus, Plato compares the soul to a charioteer guiding two horses, one noble, the other wild. The noble horse seeks what is pure and divine, the other pulls toward base pleasures and chaos. The journey of the soul in love, then, is not merely about passion or possession. It is a spiritual conflict between ascent and descent, between what draws us upward and what drags us down. Here, emotional detachment plays a pivotal role. The detached person does not stimulate the wild horse. He does not arouse chaotic passion, nor does he provoke emotional desperation. Instead, his calmness, his composed manner, and his disinterest in immediate gratification provoke something more rare: wonder. And wonder, Plato says, is the beginning of philosophy. The soul that encounters a detached individual senses something different, something elevated. It is as if this person exists above the usual games of need and desire. He does not flatter or compete. He does not plead for affection. He simply is. And in that being, he provokes not arousal but awe, not emotional intensity, but intellectual and spiritual curiosity. This is the first rung on Plato's ladder of love, described in the Symposium. According to this idea, love begins at the physical level, desire for a beautiful body. But with time and reflection, the soul climbs higher, from the love of one body to the love of many, from many bodies to the love of the soul, from the soul to the love of virtue, and finally, to the contemplation of beauty itself, pure, eternal, and beyond form. The emotionally detached person is not merely resisting love. He is channeling it upward. He refuses to descend into emotional dependence, because he knows that real love, Plato's love, is not rooted in possession. It is rooted in the recognition of value, in the elevation of the soul. This makes his presence strangely magnetic. For many, it is the first time they've seen someone not try to consume or conquer love, but to witness it, to hold it gently, reverently, like a philosopher glimpsing the divine. When a woman, or any soul, encounters this level of detachment, it creates tension. There is no emotional chaos to dive into, no drama to feed on. Instead, she is left with silence, with stillness, and in that space, she must confront something deeper within herself. What am I really seeking? It is here, Plato would say, that the ascent begins. For the detached individual reflects a love that is not needy, not grabbing, not intoxicated by emotion, but rather shaped by reason, grounded in truth, and committed to a vision of higher beauty. And paradoxically, it is this very detachment that draws others close. Because unlike emotional passion, which seeks to consume, this higher form of love seeks to transform. It invites not possession, but participation, not control, but contemplation. Thus, the detached man becomes a kind of mirror, not of what the other desires, but of what they could become. In his calm, they sense a calm they long for. In his discipline, a self they wish to build. In his lack of craving, the freedom they secretly crave. And so, emotional detachment becomes the spark, not of coldness, but of clarity. It does not kill love. It purifies it. It strips it of its desperation and replaces it with reverence. Reverence for something higher. Something that Plato called beauty. Not as appearance, but as truth made visible. And that, ultimately, is what the soul chases. Not the person, not the game, not the thrill, but the glimpse of something greater, seen only through the stillness of someone who no longer needs to chase anything at all. Plato often reminded us that we do not see the world as it is, we see it as a reflection. In his famous allegory of the cave, he describes a group of prisoners who mistake shadows on a wall for reality. Only when one of them escapes and sees the sunlight, the truth, does he realize how deceptive the shadows were. In love, something very similar occurs. When a woman, ally, or anyone, for that matter, becomes fascinated with someone detached, someone who does not reveal too much or crave too much, she may believe she is drawn to him. But Plato would say, she is chasing not the man himself, but the idea of what he might be. She projects onto him the qualities she longs for: strength, peace, purpose, clarity, inner control. In truth, she cannot yet see him clearly. What she sees is a sketch in her own mind, outlined by her desires and filled in by her imagination. This is the power of emotional detachment. It withholds information, and in that space of unspoken mystery, the mind begins to idealize. According to Plato's theory of forms, Everything in our sensory world is an imperfect imitation of something perfect. A beautiful face, for example, is only a pale copy of the form of beauty, which exists beyond time and space, changeless and flawless. Likewise, a just act reflects the eternal form of justice. Now imagine a man who remains calm when others panic, who remains silent when others seek attention, who does not pursue validation or display emotional hunger. In that stillness, he resembles something rare, something that does not bend to the ordinary conditions of the world. He begins to look like a form, or at least, a mirror of one. To the soul searching for meaning or balance, this detached person appears not only attractive, but symbolic. He becomes an emblem of the very thing the soul lacks: self-possession, focus, completeness. And so, to possess him, or to win his affection, begins to feel like possessing the ideal. If he chooses her, it must mean something. It must mean she is worthy of being seen by what she sees as divine. This is not love of the person, but of the perfection she imagines he represents. Plato would call this misdirected love. It is the second level on the ladder of love, a step above physical lust, but still a projection. And it is a dangerous one, because the more silent and composed the man remains, the more blank space she has to fill with fantasy. He becomes not just someone she wants, but someone she needs to validate her own worth, to fulfill an image she has formed of herself, one who is chosen by the powerful, the sovereign, the self-contained. But what happens when reality intrudes? Eventually, all images fade. The man will speak, act, reveal inconsistencies. The illusion will flicker. At this point, the love either evolves or collapses. If it was built on projection alone, the dissonance becomes too sharp to bear. Plato urges us to move beyond projection and toward the love of truth, to not only see beauty in another, but to seek what beauty truly is. That means recognizing when we are in love with the form, and not the flawed human being who momentarily resembles it. Yet, until that moment of awakening, the chase continues, not for the man, but for the meaning he appears to hold. And this is the heart of Plato's insight. Love begins in illusion, but it can lead us to truth, if we're willing to see clearly. The detached man is powerful not because of what he does, but because of what he withholds. In that withholding, he becomes a mirror for her ideal. To win him is to win access to a world that feels above this one, calm, unchanging, full of meaning. But if one stops climbing Plato's ladder there, mistaking the symbol for the source, they may chase shadows rather than light. Because no person can ever fully be the ideal. They can only point to it, just long enough for us to realize. The perfection we're seeking must ultimately be found within ourselves. In Plato's world, the soul is not just a bundle of emotions or desires. It is a hierarchy of powers, reason at the top, spirit in the middle, and appetite at the base. A well-ordered soul is one in which reason rules, spirit obeys, and appetite submits. Such a soul is rare. It does not swing wildly with emotional tides, nor does it chase fleeting pleasures. Instead, it is anchored, calm, rational, difficult to shake. This kind of soul is what Plato would call sacred. Now imagine this in human form. A man who does not easily fall into emotional traps, who does not respond with desperation or impulsivity, who does not seek to dominate or to be dominated, but simply governs himself. This is what we call detachment, but not as coldness or indifference. Rather, it is a sign of inner strength, of a soul in harmony with itself. To Plato, such a man would resemble the philosopher, king, the one who has emerged from the cave of illusion and now sees things as they truly are. He is not governed by what others think of him. He does not seek power through manipulation. He is guided by logos, by reason, wisdom, and an understanding of the eternal. This makes him incredibly difficult to corrupt, because corruption preys on emotional weakness. It seduces with pleasure, pressures with fear, manipulates through insecurity. But none of these work on the man who is free from emotional chaos. He is already full within himself. And this, paradoxically, is what draws others toward him, especially in the realm of romantic desire. For many, especially those used to controlling others emotionally, the detached individual presents a puzzle they cannot solve. He cannot be baited with beauty. He cannot be trapped with approval. He cannot be bought with praise. His responses are measured, his attention is limited, and his self-respect is non-negotiable. Such restraint is rare, in a world that is constantly reacting, scrolling, swiping, responding, craving. Stillness is almost supernatural. Plato would say that this rare alignment of the soul makes a man appear sacred, not in a religious sense, but in a philosophical one. He becomes untouchable by the lower forces of the world. Now consider what happens when a woman encounters such a man. She may be drawn not to him personally, but to the strength of his essence. He becomes the embodiment of what she wishes to feel inside her: self-control, clarity, sovereignty. If she could possess him, if she could gain his approval, it would feel like access to a higher plane of power. But he is not easily possessed. He gives only what he chooses to give. He moves only when it aligns with his values. He is not rushed by emotion, nor pulled by the need to impress. His silence says more than most people's words. His boundaries are not defenses. They are philosophical declarations. And this makes him not only attractive, but sacred. Because we are not drawn to what we can easily conquer. We are drawn to what resists corruption, because it reminds us that incorruptibility is possible. Plato believed that the ultimate aim of love is not pleasure, but transformation, a lifting of the soul from the temporary to the eternal. The detached man plays this role, knowingly or not. He becomes a guide, not by teaching or persuading, but by being, by existing as an example of inner order in a disordered world. In this sense, he is not a prize to be won, but a principle to be respected. He is loved not because he gives pleasure, but because he inspires something higher, something that awakens the noblest part of the soul, the part that seeks truth, beauty, and wisdom, not just attention or affection. And so she chases him, not to capture him, but to touch something sacred through him, not to own his heart, but to witness a soul that cannot be bought, broken, or swayed. For Plato, such a soul is the rarest of all, and in its presence the true meaning of love is revealed, not as possession, but as reverence. She doesn't chase him because he plays a game. She chases him because he plays none at all. In his silence, there is certainty. In his calm, there is clarity, and in his detachment there is a glimpse of something eternal, something the soul cannot explain, but cannot ignore. Plato taught us that love begins in desire, but its highest form is found not in possession, but in elevation. The truly detached man becomes more than a lover. He becomes a mirror of what the soul yearns to become: whole, disciplined, unshaken by impulse, a reflection of the divine order itself. In chasing him, she is not really chasing him. She is chasing the peace he carries, the power he reflects, the depth he conceals. But the greatest truth, Plato's final truth, is this: what we seek in others is often what we have not yet found in ourselves. And perhaps, in admiring the detached, we are being invited not to possess them, but to become them, to govern our own soul, to rise from the cave, to become the thing we once thought was outside us. For in the end, the one who is hardest to chase is the one who has already caught himself.